everybody. Hope you're all doing well, and thanks for joining us for, yes, don't adjust your screens. This is live. Hopefully it's actually working, because this is the first proper live stream that I've ever done. So, yeah, we'll see how this goes. I've done one live stream previously, which was in Antarctica. What a way to set the bar. Well, that was under close observation from Mr. MC Toon. This is the first unsupervised stream that I've done, and using completely different software. So let's just go into this fully expecting everything to go wrong. Anything less than everything going wrong we'll consider a bonus, and if everything goes right and according to plan, then we'll call that a miracle, because I don't actually have a plan as of yet. But if all else fails, I can just pull up my trusty sidekick, who doesn't seem to be particularly interested in what's going on at the moment. But yeah. Anyway, I thought this would just be a good opportunity for me to go over, really recap what happened in Antarctica. I know pretty much everyone else who went on the trip has had a recap stream of some form or another, and Will has organised that there's going to be a big reunion stream on Tuesday, which I'll be a part of. I'm not sure who else. I assume everyone else is going to be there as well. But I thought I'd just take this opportunity to do a stream of my own, recap over what happened in Antarctica, show you some of the footage as well, because a lot of what I shot, photos, videos, was more just documentation, short clips, rather than big, long segments. So I couldn't really just publish everything for everyone to view, because most of it without any context wouldn't really make any sense. So, yeah, I thought this would be a good opportunity for that. And I'll also obviously try and keep a tab on the chats, and yeah, this is going to be fun. So let's just kick off with a couple of super chats here. It's a Rubik's for $1, but no message. Thank you, It's a Rubik's. And Turtle Moose for £2. Have some money off me. Well, thank you very much indeed. Yeah, so let's. I don't really know where to begin. Oh, I'll tell you what I would like to do, in fact. Before I get into my footage, I was looking through some of MC Toon's footage from his GoPro. Now, just to be clear here, there is he's got a whole host of footage that is going online that I think he's going to be publishing. I don't know if it's all publicly available yet. I know he's doing some videos where he's going to be sort of making highlight reels of everything. So I've got access to a lot of his raw footage at the moment. And I was having a look through some of it, and there was two clips in particular that just tickled me a little bit, relating to a lot of the flack that flat earthers have put out so far in response to the final experiment. So most of you are probably aware I got accused of being a Freemason because I dared to put a boot under a table, because apparently that's a Freemason ritual now. What actually happened was let me just bring up a picture to show you. Obviously, we're in the middle of Antarctica. It's freezing cold. We're surrounded just by ice in all directions. And I was having to power my cameras by power banks, basically. I had a solar panel, but the solar panel couldn't power everything. So I had to put power banks up in place. And batteries do not like being in the cold. And I didn't exactly have huge, big, long cables that I could just run everything into the hut and power it off the mains. So I just had to, I thought everything's got to be sort of piled together around the tripods. And so I thought, I don't just want to leave these power bricks just sat on the ice, because then they're just going to get cold. They're going to go flat a lot quicker. It's not a good setup. So what I wound up doing, what I thought to myself was, I'll bring this up here. Let me get this onto screen share for you to see. So here we are. This is my two tripods there, the Insta360 and my equatorial mount. And then I just put all of the power bricks into this boot. So they're inside the boot. There's a couple of hand warmers in there as well. And then I put this is the pouch off my water bottle. I stuffed that in the top, basically to just try and make this little sealed container unit, just to try and keep the batteries less freezing than they would have been if I just dumped them on the ice. But obviously then, as I'm showing this on, I thought I'm going to do my live stream at the end of the 24-hour period, and I wanted to show people this particular setup, and I thought it's a little difficult to try and explain why I've got a boot on the floor and a bunch of wires. So I thought, I know, there's two boots in my pack. One of them is full of power banks, but the other one is just sat in the hut. I'll go and get that. So I decided to prepare in advance for the live stream by putting the boot underneath the table where I knew I was going to be streaming from, in preparation. Flat earthers aren't buying that. Apparently it's a Masonic ritual, and a couple of flat earthers dared try saying that there's no chance, there's no reason why you would put power banks in a boot. Apparently that seemed ridiculous to them. Well, I happened to find, here we are, this is, let me bring this back up now. So this is part of Toon's
what's that? Oh, that's my
footage.
Oh no,
as we're getting to the camp. So we're already starting to unload there. All the bags and everything have been offloaded. And then we were just chatting around, setting everything up.
Yeah. We're getting north-south.
And then
I'm pretty much going with sort of,
yeah, so this was us just trying to set everything up. We were trying to figure out where north and south was, basically. So you can see this line that's being dug in the ice here. That was Toon and Critical Think buried that in place, worked out where north-south was. So we knew that south was roughly in between these peaks here. So I was trying to get my equatorial mount lined up. And then somewhere, oh, here it is. I'm hoping you can all hear this.
It's okay, it's more just, I don't want the batteries getting cold, but if I put them in the...
I'm hoping that you can hear that. But just in case you can't, that was me speaking to Scott, who was the guide who helped us up here. He's one of the staff there. He was absolutely amazing this entire trip. And I went and asked him, I was actually asking him, would we be needing these thick polar boots, given the climate that we were in, the weather we were experiencing? I was in walking boots by that point. So I thought, unless the weather turns into a blizzard, I don't see why I would need to wear the polar boots. So I was actually asking him, sort of explaining to him that I wanted to use the polar boot to store the batteries in. So I like that clip, the fact that I like that, the fact that the flat earthers don't believe this cock and bull story, apparently, that that I would dare to think to put power banks in a boot. That seems far too sus. And yet here we have captured footage showing that actually I was planning that from the outset. Yeah. So, a couple more super chats come in. Emma for €5 for the Rusty Camp Fund. Thank you very much. As you can see, Emma, he's absolutely thrilled with that. Christian Elisar for 1 CHF, no message. Thank you very much. Asylum for $2 Australian. 24 seconds of silence to celebrate 24 hours of sun. Well, if you want me to stop talking, I can do that if you'd prefer. Kathleen McCrory for $5 cheap cup of coffee or tea. Thank you very much. I did actually come prepared. I have my tea here. Patrick Tuckers for €22. One downside of the trip for you as a photographer: no night sky. That is one aspect. I think if I would love to experience the polar night. I think my missus would kill me if I tried going away for 11 days again. But yes, the night sky, I could only imagine what the night skies out there must be, being thousands of miles away from any form of light pollution. Storm Chaser Pat for $20. I have some mild criticism of TFE. In my opinion, TFE failed to understand why people get into Flat Earth, or any cult for that matter. As someone who was in a cult, showing cult members their beliefs are wrong rarely works. I agree to some extent there, Storm Chaser, but I think it's one of those that you can't tar everyone with the same brush, I don't think. There will be some people who will not face what is presented to them. I think where TFE really would come into its own is more helping the people who haven't yet fell into a cult, shall we say. The people who, I don't think anybody who doesn't... Most people don't ever consider the shape of the Earth. Most people in their day-to-day lives don't think, is the Earth flat? Is it a globe? Everything around us, even though there's so much of our everyday lives that are built and designed to function based around the Earth being a globe, to most people they never consider what shape the Earth actually is. So when they then hear about the idea of the Earth being flat, they're not just going to immediately go, "Oh, somebody thinks the Earth's flat. I'll agree with them on that." Immediately, everyone starts having questions. How do you explain this? How do you explain that? And obviously, they then go looking for explanations of how do sunsets and sunrises work on a flat Earth and the likes. And I think having the likes of TFE being able to show all of these tests, experiments, things that we did on that trip, and the basic fact that the 24-hour sun exists and has null and void the idea of the AE map, I think that will help a lot of people realize the Earth can't be flat before they ever fall into the trap of thinking the Earth is truly flat. So I get what you're saying, but I think it's one of those, there's no one solution that just fixes every person's idea. Everyone takes something a little bit different for them to realize that they were wrong. Mark W, £2. Rusty was doing a great Witsit impression. Well, he's not smoking. Jay Denacci, $10. I didn't see all the scaffolding in the stadium-sized studio and the cameras and the bulldozers for the immense job to put the 50,000-ton green screen in place. Yes, we were very sneaky with how they did it. We had what I'll call a neutron star compactor, and we just packed it all down into this tiny little cube, like Inspector Gadget. You just throw it out on the ice, and then boom, out pops this huge Amazon studio. That's just as believable as the shite that flat earthers have been coming up with, right? Valentin Demonyev for £20. Hi, Dave. Please call me Val. Can I kindly ask you for advice and guidance on a photography project and where to email you for details? I promise to give you all the footage to use it for content. Really love your work. Thanks, Val. If you go onto my YouTube channel's About page, there's a link in there to my email address. You can just hit me up through that. It's probably the best way to do it. Right, Super Chat's caught up with, and what else to go with now? I'll put Rusty away for a little while. So yeah, I noticed a lot of the footage that I've shown thus far has all been focused on Antarctica. I've not really covered anything that happened in Punta Arenas, even though we spent more time there than we did in Antarctica. So let's see what I've got hiding here. I'm just gonna. No, I'm not gonna do that. Why am I doing that? This is going well. Here we go. So let's just bring up some photos for you all. Here we go. So this was on the flight from Santiago, flying over to Punta Arenas, and I'm assuming these are the what's the mountains? I can't think. Had it before. The big mountain range that runs through. It's not the Is it the Andes? Could well be the Andes. Anyway, the view out of the window, even just before we got to Punta Arenas, was stunning. It's kind of hard to tell there what's clouds and what's mountains. Yeah, just a beautiful view out of the plane window. And then once I landed in Punta Arenas, this is the 757, the one that we would then fly on to Antarctica a few days later. That just is based in Punta Arenas Airport for a good, 3 months while ALE are using it. And then jump forward. This is obviously Mr. Duffy, the mastermind behind the entire trip. There's him. This is Toon, and Tuna, as his GoPro came to be known, and Critical Think here. This guy that he's talking to was one of the organisers for the ice marathon that was taking place a day or two before we landed there. You'll see it. I've got some footage of him somewhere. He's got a T-shirt about the North Pole Marathon, and he's got a South Pole cap on, which immediately, as soon as we saw that, we started asking, are you part of the ice marathon crew then? And the moment he heard that we were going out to Antarctica with flat earthers to tackle flat Earth, he was all up for talking and wanted to be sort of more than happy to be filmed and explaining the numerous times that he's been to Antarctica to organise the ice marathon, that it's always in December, and he's never been there when it's dark. And then this is obviously the four of us, myself, Will, Toon, and Critical Think, on the platform across the road from the hotel, where we actually spent quite a lot of time around that area, setting up. We did numerous bits of photography there, time-lapse footage. That was where I shot the sunrise on one of the days. I did not have a particularly good facial expression for this picture, but that's because the camera was my Sony camera. But rather than set it up on a timer, I actually had it on a remote trigger using my phone. So you can see my phone's there in my hand, and I think I was focusing too much on listening for the sound of the shutter going off in the camera that I kind of forgot I was meant to be looking, happy to be there. But rest assured, I actually was. And then, yeah, this is the equatorial mount that flat earthers hate so much. This was when I'd set it up in Punta to practice trying to align it to the sun, because typically the only times I've ever used this before were for tracking night sky. So being able to set it up using the stars as alignment, I knew full well, but trying to do it blind aiming at the sun was going to be a little bit more difficult. And then I couldn't actually get it to, initially it just wasn't following the sun properly, and I couldn't fathom why. And then I remembered, out of habit, I'd left it set to star rather than solar because I'm a muppet. But once I'd remembered to change it to the right rotation speed, it worked absolutely fine. Now, I know I've seen a flat earther somewhere asking, why did I bother? Why was I going through this trouble of, having so much of a problem setting up this EQ mount, and why didn't I just set it up to have just set it to 90 degrees, have it horizontal, and done a track round much easier, which would have worked great if I was using a wide angle lens. Unfortunately, with a 500mm lens, I only had about a 3 degrees vertical field of view. So if I'd done that, I'd have very quickly lost sight of the sun. But, you know, that's just flat earth experts that don't actually understand what they're talking about. Before I carry on, just going to catch back up with some more super chats. Gary Io for £10. I'm playing amateur radio at the moment on HF. Digital mode called FT8. It plots my signals on both Mercator, curved lines, and great circle straight lines. It's very cool. Be interesting to see how all that looks on an AE map, or whatever map flat earthers are now using. Bug for $5. Do you ever feel like giving up after flat earthers infinitely make excuses for the flat earth? No, not particularly. I say it's frustrating. It's there's some people who you just expect to be intellectually dishonest and offer them an answer, and then they just dismiss the answer and carry on babbling what they want to believe. But it's even though you know the people who make YouTube videos about, or flat earthers that make YouTube videos, are very unlikely to accept what you're saying or really critically analyze and put into context what you're saying, because they can't accept the earth is a globe, because then they can't be making YouTube videos. I know my videos still reach a much wider audience, and there are people who are seeing it and are learning from it, and not even flat earthers. I mean, obviously there are people who question the earth is flat, see my videos, change their mind. That's amazing. But just the fact that even when I make a video, and even if it's just all globers that watch it, you still have people commenting going, I've just learned something new, which is great. It's just sharing knowledge, and that's brilliant. Pat in the chat, $10. Your lighting is on point. Are you a photographer or something? So I've been told. Sorry you had to share a space with Witsit for that long. I was around him last weekend. He's insufferable. Yeah, I didn't really have many interactions with Austin, to be fair. The first night that they arrived, we all went out to dinner together. It quickly descended into chaos, but I'm trying to think. The day before we flew out to Antarctica, I wound up, there was myself, Austin, Jaren, Mark, Lisbeth, and Jonathan. Mark and Jonathan, I can't remember which one I just said, but all of us in a restaurant down the road from the hotel. Toon, Critical Think, and Will had gone off on an errand somewhere else. So, yeah, Austin and I had another sort of discussion regarding flat Earth there. And then we had one more once we got back from Antarctica. We were arguing the toss about why there's no satellite views of the whole of Antarctica from space, and he couldn't fathom that to see the whole of Antarctica from space in one shot, you need a polar orbit satellite, but it needs to be at sort of a geostationary distance, and there's just no point in having a satellite so far from Earth. It's like you would only put it up there to see the whole of Antarctica in one go, but it would be much more beneficial being closer to be able to see Antarctica in more detail, but then you wouldn't see all of it in one go. So he couldn't fathom that excuse me, he couldn't fathom that NASA might not want to spend millions launching a satellite just to appease people who think the Earth's flat. Paul Askins, €10. I'm having a glass of wine. Here's some spons for another cup of tea. Keep up the good work. Love your stuff from Antarctica. Thank you very much, Paul. Yes, I'll stick with the tea. I'm not really one for alcohol, unfortunately. It's a Rubik's for $2. I work at NASA, seriously. Here's your hush money. Thank you, Rubik's. And Judy Bassett, €10, no message, but thank you very much, Judy. And Jay Donacci, $2, equatorial mounts. How much are they on the cheap? I think the one that I have is a Skywatcher Star Adventurer. It's an older version. I think the one that I've got is the version 1, and they do a version 2 now. I think they're about £300, give or take, there or thereabouts. So I don't think there's many in the used market. So you're probably going to wind up buying new. But yeah, about 300, I think, for the one that I use, and it does a really good job. Right, back to the pictures. Where were we? So this was just, the big statue that was outside the hotel, depicting, I'm assuming that's some sort of explorers who, I don't know, they found Chile. There's probably a story to it, but I didn't bother to find out what. And then this was just on one of the days, myself, Toon, and Critical Think went for a wander off around Punta Arenas. So this was just the bell tower that was in town. And then this was Toon taking a little vlog video in front of a big statue, which we particularly focused on for the fact that that is not a flat earth that's depicted on the statue. The bell tower again, but by this point we'd walked further across town, and it had this building in front of it had the Chilean flag in view, so I just thought that was quite a nice composition. And then this was me playing around, being a bit artsy. I decided to try and shoot the Chilean flag in front of the sun as a kind of storytelling of TFE, the fact that it involved Chile and the sun, and that was kind of the whole point of us being there. This was the view from the pier that we were on earlier, just a wide-angle shot looking out over the bay of Punta. I think, from memory, the edge of this mountain range here was the mark for where south was. So when you're looking out, that's roughly south in the direction that we obviously would then travel a few days later. And then, this was just, again, I just got a bit artsy, messing around, photographing the tanker that was parked up, and then I took this shot, which was actually a cheat shot because it's 2 shots combined. I wanted to get a long exposure shot that would take out the ripples of the water and have the movement of the clouds, but I think the photo ended up being taken over, I think it's like 10 or 15 seconds, but this tanker's not actually static, it was moving around quite a lot, so I ended up taking 2 shots, one with a fast shutter to freeze the tanker, one with a slow shutter, and then I cheated and blended them together. This is the platform we were on, so this is my camera that I'd set up testing tracking the sun. Obviously, Mr. Toon and his P1000, and then Critical Think's setup was there, although he'd wandered off by that point. And then this is obviously Toon, and this was Jonathan. We were out doing all sorts of bits and pieces. So I was at this point I was just practicing trying to set up the EQ mount. I was basically just in preparation mode for going to Antarctica, whereas Mike, Will, and Critical Think were all gearing up to do other tests that they'd already planned out, which I think you'll see in a second in another picture. But yeah, so Jonathan was out with us because he knew that they were doing all of these actual experiments and tests, so wanted to document it all. Potentially it's going to be in the documentary. I don't know yet. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, by this point I'd packed down my mount by this point, so I thought I'd just get some photos and videos of everything else that was going on as well. So this is the test or part of the experiment that they were doing. So this is Will is holding, I'll bring this up because I actually have this here. So Will was carrying this, which is a little GPS unit. Mike has got, Toon has got his GoPro walking behind it, recording the GPS screen so you can see the exact GPS coordinates. And then Critical Think has got his little trundle wheel there for measuring distance, because they'd worked out this path was perfectly east-west. So they walked along from one end of the path right the way to the other end of the path, and they could measure how long the path was and mark and record what the longitude was at one end and the longitude at the other, so they could work out how far between lines of longitude. We did that in Punta Arenas, at Union Glacier, at Santiago. I then brought this unit back and bought a trundle wheel myself, and I did it here because where I am is a fairly similar latitude to where Punta Arenas is, but obviously in the opposite hemisphere. So great test right there. If the distance between lines of longitude is the same where I am as it is in Punta Arenas, only one shape for the Earth going there that I can see. And then, yeah, this is just a few more general shots of them recording the measurements. That was one of the test shots I did of the sun, but I think that was just handheld. That wasn't on the mount at that point. I think I just got a clear view of the sun, because when I'd been doing it the day before previously, when I had it set up on the EQ mount, there was so many clouds, I was struggling to get a clear view of the sun without having a load of haze and distortion around the edge of it. So I think this was a bit later on, possibly the next day. Weather had cleared up a bit, got a clear view of the sun. That's a view of looking out across Punta Arenas, sort of the houses. I just like the colours of all the buildings, and then obviously the mountains in the background. Oh no, in fact, this is all around the same time because they're still doing the trundle wheel measurements. This was Toon's magnetic. I can't remember what he called it, but where he was measuring the magnetic field strength and the direction of it. And then, yeah, he was having to obviously record what angle the needle was sitting at. And then this was Toon with Jonathan. Jonathan had this is Jonathan's camera here, and he's got his own solar filter on, so I think he was doing some capturing of the sun as well that Toon was helping him out with. And then Toon was also doing a little piece to camera explaining one of the experiments that he was doing. I can't remember what. And there he is again, just sort of, yeah, explaining what's going on. And then I went a bit of a walk around the other side of the fountain. So that is Mike and Jonathan against, obviously, the fountain in the foreground. There's that boat again, but just up close with the wide-angle shot. Somebody's flipped the moon upside down. Can you believe it? And then the last photo is, this was taken, I can't even remember, I've lost count of all my days, but this was the night sky. One of the time-lapse photos one of the photos that I got from the time-lapse that I did, looking towards the South Celestial Pole. And when you view the whole time lapse, you can clearly see the stars rotating around the South Celestial Pole, and the South Celestial Pole not actually moving. So yeah, that is everything from Punta Arenas in terms of the photos. I might try and pull up some of the videos in a minute as well. Let's just get back on with these super chats because they're building up a little bit. Mark W, £5. Can't send a super chat. Too busy holding on to the 1,666 mile an hour spinning globe we live on while trying to take pictures of all my stuff flying out of the room. Well, close the window then. You won't have a problem. I see Spin, $2. NASA understands spending dollars unwise versus ideologies. Tony DeLewis for $5. Love your content. Always learn something about photography and get entertained as well. Keep it up. Thanks, Tony. That's what I was saying before. Just even if my content doesn't actually reach flat earthers, the fact that people learn from it is all the reason I need to do it. Wiley Coyote, $5. The amount of work you put into disproving any criticism is amazing. The evidence presented is far more meticulous than any flat earth experiment. I think that's the funny thing, is the fact that we went into this knowing and expecting flat earthers to try and pull everything to pieces. So I noticed, I did, most of you probably might have seen it in the video I did, but I recently went into one of Flatzoid's live streams, somewhat unexpectedly. I was watching him completely screw up, trying to analyze the solar photography that I did, and I went in. I just offered to go in to show them outright on the screen the photos and when they were all took, because they couldn't fathom why they were appearing as to be over 3 days. So I went on to explain, and they were asking me all these other questions, and then they started quizzing me about the 360 footage. Well, obviously, I'm on my computer. I've got all the files right here. So I just pulled them up on screen share to show them all the original footage rather than trying to analyze compressed YouTube footage. And I noticed somebody comment afterwards going, it's suspicious that all the questions we've got, he's got the answers for. I'm like, they cannot fathom. We have the answers because we were expecting to be needing all of the answers. Like, it's not like when Apollo went to the moon, or when other people have been to Antarctica in the past, they just went of the mindset thinking, we're going to capture some photos and some videos to document what we're doing. Whereas we were going in with the mindset of, we need to document all of the documentation that we're doing, because I know that people are going to start quizzing me. How do I know that that's actually real? In fact, where am I here? So this is a time lapse that I took of sunrise in Punta Arenas. So we decided to want to get the sunrise to be able to show that the sun not only rose south of us, so out to sea, but the fact that it was moving in this same direction, this sort of right to left direction, which is obviously opposite to the north. What I also wanted to do at the same time is use the solar camera, the solar setup that I was going to be using in Antarctica with the solar filter. I wanted to get a picture or a time lapse of the sunrise, but with the solar filter on. So there wasn't any of the landscape. There was just literally the sun to show that it wasn't getting bigger or smaller as it rose. And so this is the time lapse of that. I think this is a mountain range at the bottom that it's coming over, and then it's obviously passing through some clouds. So I didn't get a completely unobstructed view. But even then, I'm just thinking at the time, there's no doubt there's going to be flat earthers that don't trust that that is actually a time lapse from Punta Arenas, kind of at that time. So I wound up with my phone behind the camera, shooting the back of the camera as it's capturing the time-lapse photos so that you can see the sun physically coming up. And yeah, everything about this trip was thinking, what are flat earthers going to say about this? How are they going to try and dismiss what we've done? How can I then counter it? In fact, that actually leads me perfectly onto the next video clip of Toons that I want to show you. So I'll bring that up now.
I already did. Oh.
So this is,
all right, we have one.
As we've after we've arrived in Union Glacier. This is Will's CIA bodyguard. That's what Austin and Jaron thought he was. So you've probably all seen the photo that Will posted on the TFE YouTube page while we were out there, of the group photo of us at the camp.
You guys, that's so
And
cool.
4 of us have got t-shirts off.
That's amazing.
I call the picture nipples on ice.
Oh, here we go.
So Jonathan was just all eager for taking his top off. Will decided he was going to join in. Austin did as well. And then I said, all right, fine, I'll take my t-shirt off, but I was literally just taking it off for the picture and then putting it straight back on again.
I'll be on the end. So what, you want to go dress?
So there we are, we've got the photo, and then I put the t-shirt back on, and I'm hoping you'll be able to hear what I'm about to say.
You do realise that this idea is going to come back and bite you on the arse? Yeah, that's
Why?
Because if that photo makes it online, Dirk is going to turn around and go, see, there can't be an Antarctica, it's not back home. That's hilarious.
So I don't know how loud that just came through for everybody. I'm hoping that you could hear it, but just in case it didn't. So what I said to Will was, if he puts that picture online, Dirth is going to turn around and say that we can't be in Antarctica because it clearly can't be that cold. Which, shock horror, is what flat earthers have been saying. It's just, yeah, I don't know if I'm just like the Flurf whisperer that I could just preempt what people were going to be coming up with. But yeah, that was funny. When I looked back through that footage, I found that just the other day. I absolutely wet myself. The fact that there was that much going on, I completely forgot about that. I'd completely forgot that Toon had set his GoPro up to film that piece of footage. Someone was asking me the other day, did anybody get any video footage of us having the picture with our tops off? And I was like, I don't remember it. I don't recall there being. Yeah, there's so much that went on in the space of in such a short period of time. I couldn't keep track of everything that was going on. People asking me now, like, what happened here, what happened there, and I genuinely can't remember. There's bits and pieces of the trip where I thought one thing happened, and it was only when seeing the footage back or seeing somebody else talking about it that I realised actually it was a bit different. Like the shadow of Mount Rossman over the camp was one that's been in contention recently. So Brian's Logic's been all over it, going, where's the shadow of Mount Rossman? You were supposed to be, the reason that you were supposed to be moved to the other camp was because the shadow of Mount Rossman was going to go over the main camp and you'd lose sight of the sun. So why in Will's 36-hour time lapse do you not see it? And my recollection of what happened was that the staff had said it sometimes goes behind the mountains and sometimes it doesn't, and they couldn't guarantee that it didn't because most of them, well, it only goes behind the mountain in the early hours of the morning when most of the staff are asleep anyway. So, and even if you're awake, to most people when you're there living it on a day-to-day basis, you don't really give a second thought to the sun's briefly gone out of view. You certainly don't pay enough attention to think, I know it goes behind the mountain on this date and this date, but not this date. So I just thought they'd said, put us up in the other camp because it was already set up from the ice marathon, and that's just a safer bet that it guarantees that we won't get an unobstructed view. I actually think it was partly, I think ALE actually suggested that we do it more because they knew we were going to be busy with the cameras in the early hours of the morning, and they wanted the camp, the quiet times of the camp to be adhered to. So maybe it's possible that they actually wanted us up at the other camp just so that we didn't disturb other people. But either which way, on the 15th, the early hours of the 15th, when we'd got back to the main camp, myself, Toon, and Will didn't go straight to bed. Even though I'd been up for 40 odd hours, my adrenaline was just through the roof, and I'd had my, I've got my Insta 360 still here. Obviously the time lapse was recorded on that. And I thought I just want to get the footage off that on my laptop. I want it backed up on the laptop and on an external drive. I don't want to risk like it going wrong now. So I stayed up for a few hours. So I didn't go to bed until about 5 in the morning, by which point I think the sun was already on the past Mount Rossman, past the peaks of Mount Rossman. And the whole time we'd been sat in the food tent, I was like, it didn't go dark. I didn't see any shadow. There was windows in the tent that were looking towards Mount Rossman, and at no point do I recall them going dark. And then the next night, the 16th going into the 17th, I didn't sleep again. So all the periods of time in Antarctica when the sun was going through the early hours of the morning, I was awake for all 3 instances, 1 at halfway point and 2 at the main Union Glacier camp. And I never saw the sun get obstructed by the peaks of Mount Rossman. So my recollection of it when speaking to Brian's Logic was the sun didn't go behind the sun didn't get low enough to go behind the peaks. So the shadow never cast over the camp itself. The shadow would have been further south of it, and you can't see it properly there because far end of the camp there's a big ravine. It drops down out the way. The staff actually told us on the induction tour there's flags on the south end of the camp, don't go further than those because it drops away into a big ditch and you don't want to go down there. It was only when looking back through, because Brian was going on some big rampage because Jaren had said that the sun went behind Mount Rossman, and I just figured that that I don't recall seeing Jaren out of the tent in the early hours, so I figured that he was just assuming that it went behind the mountain because the staff had said it could go behind the mountain. It was only when I looked back on Will's footage I realised that the shadow did actually cast across the camp, but it was only at the very southern end of the camp. We were literally like, I think the shadow sort of cut through the middle of the camp. You could see the far tents go dark. But I was always at the north end of the camp, further away from it, which is why I didn't see it. So my recollection of what went on was actually slightly different to potentially other people's, because if you were at the south end of the camp, you'd have been plunged into a shadow, whereas I wasn't. Where are we at here? Dr. Akula, the Count, for 20 Australian dollars. Yay, finally you're doing a stream. Told you I'd be keeping my first ever super chat for this. Well, hopefully it was worth the wait. Do you know what? I've been planning on doing live streams. I actually considered doing live streams about 2 years ago, not long after I'd started dealing with getting into watching Flat Earth on YouTube. And then I was watching the likes of Toon and FTFE and those, constantly just like doing lots of live streams. And I thought, this might be fun. I might do a live stream. So I had a look and I thought, how would I go about doing a live stream? Because I've never done one. I don't know what to do. And I saw you use a software called OBS. So I thought, okay, great. I'll get OBS, which I've got now. This is what I'm now using. But when I first got it, it's quite a complicated piece of kit to get your head around. And so I thought, I'm not just jumping straight into a live with this. I need to work out how the hell it all works. So I thought I'll just play around with it. I'll test it out. I'll see what I can get it to do. Not realizing that it has the facility of you being able to start a live stream from the software. I figured you just did it through YouTube. So I'd set it to start streaming, thinking that would bring the camera up, because the camera wasn't even showing on the app at the time. So I hit start streaming and then suddenly realized that there was more than me watching the stream, and that I had actually gone live. it wasn't displaying anything other than the OBS logo. So I had a panic and shut the stream down. I even then had somebody email me, one of the people who started watching, email me to make me aware that my channel had started streaming because they thought I might have been hacked. So yeah, that wasn't a good start. So I thought maybe I'll just take a bit of time and I'll revisit this at a later date. And then when at that point I'd never really been on anybody's live streams. Very rarely was I going live or being involved in anything live. So I started joining other people's streams, but obviously most of the streams like Toon and FTFE always stream late at night, like this sort of time. But at this sort of time, the rest of my household is trying to sleep. And I'd quite often then have like my missus messaging me going, are you going to be finished sometime soon? Because I can hear you from across the house and I'm trying to sleep. And yeah, I found out the hard way that actually the sound in this room, or this room's not particularly well soundproofed, and it travels out quite a lot. The room underneath us is what we use as a spare room, so most of the time it stays empty. But we've had now 4 periods where we've had Ukrainian refugees come and stay with us. So part of this Homes for Ukraine scheme that they have here in the UK, where we sponsor a family to come and stay with us for a few months while they get themselves settled over here, and then they move on to getting their own place or whatever. Anyway, so yeah, we've had like blocks of months where people have been staying prolonged periods downstairs. So it's like I can't really get into the habit of trying to do live streams and making a load of noise. So I thought I need to do something to try and kill the sound in this room. So last weekend I basically did a complete overhaul of this room. I mean, it looks exactly the same as it did beforehand, but I had, where am I here? So this is, yeah, we, me and my dad together, we emptied the room out, pulled the carpet back because we found that the carpet was actually just really thin, quite hard carpet, and underneath was just straight floorboard. So there was pretty much nothing stopping the sound going through to downstairs. So we pulled all the carpet back, bought thick acoustic underlay and put that underneath the carpet. And then behind the computer here is a curtain that I've had up to try and cut the room in half to stop the sound, more for when I was filming, to try and stop the sound from bouncing off the far wall and back in towards the camera. I put a little curtain up, but it was only a thin curtain, so I've had that lined with a much thicker material to make it denser to try and stop the sound from escaping entirely. The door to this room was one of those cheap, flimsy doors. It's just like a wooden frame, 2 thin panels of wood/cardboard, and then filled with polystyrene that wasn't really doing much. So I've replaced that with a solid door. And then the wall just to the side of me here is a stud wall. So the other side of that is our youngest's bedroom. And so... but it was just completely hollow. So we ripped the plasterboard out and filled it with acoustic, it's kind of acoustic insulation, the same stuff that I put in these panels here, but it's in the wall, and then filled it in, or replaced the plasterboard with what is advertised to be acoustic plasterboard. So I'm hoping that all of those changes combined have now managed to kill all of the sound, or most of the sound, leaving this room. I'll get a better analysis tomorrow when I find out whether the missus is going to kill me or not, but fingers crossed, the problem has now been solved and the room is now suitable for me to do live streams in. And yeah, how often I do them remains to be seen. I don't know. It's something that I'd like to do more frequently, but it's whether I can even think of what to stream about, because I came into this not really knowing what the hell I was going to be doing. So we'll see. Derek Watts, $5. Dude, you rock and very nice work, both photography and flat earth stuff. Do you enjoy any drum and bass music? Cheers, Dave. Don't really listen to drum and bass. I'm more kind of classic rock. Is my kind of cup of tea, to be fair. Scott Lotz, $5. Thanks for building a debunking channel that isn't swimming in arrogance. You've made a far larger impact than you realize. Oh, I'm glad to hear that, Scott. Yeah, I know there's a lot of people who I see remark about my approach towards it is less antagonizing and I more enjoyable to watch. And I think I saw the likes of like Professor Dave and that, and obviously Professor Dave does a great job of debunking incorrect information, but I just find that approach that he takes, obviously some people like it for entertainment purposes. I struggle to watch it because it just and kind of gets a bit irritating after a while. So yeah, that's not the kind of approach I like to take. I do need to sometimes watch my sarcasm because that's one of the benefits of writing my own scripts for videos is I can control the sarcasm a little bit better. Whereas like if I know flat earthers always say, oh, he's reading off a script, he's reading off a script. It's like, yes, I am. I write the script for my own videos. And the reason I do that is, one, so that I can make sure that, research the information and make sure the bits of information that I'm putting in are as accurate as I can get them to be. And also it allows me to regulate the sarcasm because, otherwise I might antagonize some more people. Lord of Luminous Poo, $5. Stop me if I'm wrong, but scrambled eggs is just fried chicken. Well, technically, you're right. Megaloo for 50. Czech Coronas. Hello from the Czech Republic. Watching this educational stream about reality instead of doing uni work. Still mad at Toon for calling us Czechoslovakia. Well, yeah, I'm glad that you're finding me more educational than your uni work, although that does bring into question how good your university is. Lord of Luminous Poo again for $5. Dave, the fake snow I used in Antarctica ended up being asbestos-based. Call your doctor. Oops. Ignore what I've just said, everybody. Jimmy Madison, love your work, Dave. Will you be doing more live streams? Like I said, Jimmy, that is the plan. Hopefully. I don't know how frequently I'll be doing them. I don't want to just completely shift away from doing the videos into doing live streams, but live streams is certainly something that I'd like to do at least occasionally. Not quite sure, like I said, not quite sure what I would do on them, whether I'd go down the route of the kind of live reactions to Flat Earthers videos or what. I don't know. NASA Security Force, $10. I was drunk outside the pub thinking, and a cop came up and said, "Are you drunk?" I said, "No, I hear the world goes around every 24 hours and it won't be long now because there goes my name." Jack Lee for 100 DKK. Thanks for your tremendous work. Besides all the work you did in Antarctica for TFE, I hope you enjoyed the trip overall. Going there seems to be visiting an entirely different world. Absolutely, Jack. It was a probably, unfortunately, a once in a lifetime trip. As much as I would love to go back there, it was absolutely incredible just to experience it. I think, obviously, if it wasn't for the fact of going there to debunk Flat Earth, I would have never have got to go in the first place. So there was, rather than just being able to go and just relax and enjoy it, although there's not really much there to do, yeah, it did sort of, it was stressful but enjoyable at the same time. I think I just went wholly focused on recording that 24-hour sun and getting the solar photography. So once all that was done, then the next day back at camp, I was just on like kind of wind down by that point. I think I was going through some of the photos and the videos and editing up the photos and obviously sorting out the time lapse, making the time lapse, the short time lapse to upload as soon as possible, because I know everyone was eager to see the 24-hour sun do a complete circuit, but I couldn't really use the camp's Wi-Fi to upload the entire 20-minute time lapse, so I had to make a shortened version. So yeah, it was really busy and hectic at times, but just those moments where you weren't crazy busy, absolutely surreal place to be in. Yeah, I cannot put into words how so serene and yet scary the landscape is. It's like picturesque, beautiful, and yet you know it would kill you if you mistreat it. Anthony McDeed, where did that go? There we are. Anthony McDeed, $5. Keep up the great work. Thank you very much. Mark W, £2. You need some mods to quell the stupid in the chat. Yes, you're absolutely right, Mark. I know I need to get some mods in here. I've not even been able to keep a track of the main chat going on. So Icy Spin, I know and trust you. Where are we? Let's get some mods in here. Who can I put as some mods? There we are. Right. I see Spin, you can start on it. Luminous Poo, you can go on there as well. There we are. We've got 2 for now. I can worry about the rest later on. Where was I up to? Just a Messenger, $5. Great channel, Dave. You do a wonderful job with your content. I keep expecting you to make a smooth transition to your sponsor. It's become a little game for me now as to how can I swing a sponsor in, where can I fit it in that people aren't going to be expecting it. I do enjoy trying to come up with a way of doing it rather than just stop dead and now time for a sponsor. I do also sometimes I get so many emails from people trying to get me to sponsor, agencies and stuff wanting sponsorships, and there are times where I just go, obviously I don't just accept every sponsorship offer that comes in. In fact, most of them I turn down, but there are times where I'm just like, can I think of a way? How can I link that to it? But obviously, criteria number one is the product any good? Is it something that I'm not going to endorse something I won't use? So let's say there's several Chinese e-commerce sites that keep trying to get me to sponsor with them, and I'm just not interested in that because, I'm not. I've used those kinds in the past, and they're not great experiences, so I'm just not interested in having sponsors with them. But when there are ones that come through, I'm like, can I work out how to get a segue into that? Can I find what kind of a topic of a video could I be doing to find a segue into that? So yeah, it is fun to see people commenting, going, I wasn't expecting the segue, or I picked up on this one. Yoshi, €10. I was late to the party. I've seen a 24-hour sun in the north. It was just as amazing as the sun straight above my head at the equator. Yes, the sun at the equator on the equinox would be a fun one to watch. That ties in quite nicely to that video I did recently, actually, about the EQ mount tracking the sun through the ground, and I'm still waiting for a flat earther to explain how that works. I think the closest I've had is a certain flat earther say, well, Earth's measured flat, so there you go. Even though it's not, but hey ho. Huge Arse, the legend himself. I was going to make you won't let me. I was going to make you a moderator, Hugh, but it won't let me. Clearly, you're too big for it. $5 Australian. Always appreciated you coming on one of my live streams. Awesome that you're doing your own. Thanks, Hugh. It was great to be on your live stream, and maybe we'll do it again. Who knows? Gary IO, £5. Moderate Turquoise Laura. Requiendum. Oh, yeah. Well, IC is on the case, like I say. We'll sort the moderators out at a later date. Gig Bossman, $5. Did you get any curvature measurements? What's the best meal you had there? Thanks for all the great work you did, Dave. Massive. Make America smart again. Curvature measurements, if you're... Well... Not direct curvature measurements in the sense that we weren't measuring drop over distance or anything like that. Although, well, no, Antarctica's not flat and level. Even though it's all frozen water, it's not flat and level. As in, that's why we couldn't see the camp. We couldn't see each camp from the other one because the ground wasn't flat. But no, like I said, the longitude, measuring the lines of longitude. Is sort of indirectly measuring curvature because it's measuring left to right. Are the lines of longitude getting closer the further south you go, or are they getting further apart? Although flat earthers probably won't accept that anyway. Gary IO, £2. All of us season mods on debunking channels. Yes, okay. JSS Tiger for $10 US. How much did Will end up paying out? 150 grand. Yeah, I have no idea exactly how much. A hell of a lot is the short answer. Yeah, Hugh, you're a moderator now as well, mate. Gary, if I can find a message from you. Oh, where's Wally? Yes. Give you a spanner, sir. There we are. We've got a couple of mods now. We can control the herd. Yeah, Will. I've no idea how much he paid. I know the Antarctica bit of the trip was somewhere in the region of $35,000 from memory, and that was just the flights to and from Union Glacier and the accommodation while we were there. Then obviously there was the flights and accommodation in Punta Arenas and getting me to and from that. We all needed evacuation insurance, so if something happened to us, it's not like regular flights going in and out of there. The next flight out, leaving Union Glacier, was the flight that was going to be taking us home anyway. So if we needed evacuating earlier, they needed to send an extra flight just to come and drag us out. So yeah, I think the evacuation insurance was into 3 figures. So and that's just for one person. He obviously paid for much more than that. So yeah, I think 150 minimum probably. But Sanjiban Baragia, I probably butchered that. I do apologise. £5. Any idea why Flat Earth has backed off rather than jumping to the opportunity of visiting Antarctica? Aren't they all truthers? Some things defy logic. Well, yeah, I mean, you would think that a truth seeker would go and seek the truth. But most of them seem to not want to. For various reasons. Dirth said it was because he didn't trust anybody, which he didn't trust Will. The funny thing for me with Dirth rejecting it, obviously we all know why he actually rejected it, but if he's got this 3 Bitcoin challenge to prove the Earth's a globe, and he himself has said a 24-hour Antarctic sun doesn't work on a flat Earth, then he could have used money from the 3 Bitcoins to pay for his own place on the trip, separate from us. So he'd have just been booking a spot on the same trip as us, so he'd have been there at the same time as us, but not directly linked to us. He'd have seen the 24-hour sun for himself and thus proven his own 3 Bitcoin challenge and won the remainder of his own 3 Bitcoins and not had to pay it out to anybody else. But then he wouldn't be able to sell his app anymore. Yeah, as for the rest of them, I've no idea. And I think even if you go with the argument of you don't trust Will, you don't trust everybody else or whatever, pretty much all of the flat earthers, even if they reject the 24-hour sun, all accept that we did go to Punta Arenas. The ALE is a legitimate company that flew us to Antarctica, and we were in Antarctica for 3 days. So there's no reason that now that we've shown that you can actually go to Antarctica, any one of these people could now start trying to crowdfund their own place to go this coming December, do the same trip that we did at the same period, the same tour, 12 months later, and go and see it for themselves. But I will wager none of them will. Derek the Dullard, £10, managed to get a new job as of 2 days ago. So here's a super chat. You're an absolute legend, Dave, and massive props to you and all your work on TFE and your channel in general. We all love you, dude. Thank you very much, Derek, and congratulations on the new job. Megalo for 50 check. Just procrastination. It's actually the most prestigious maths and physics uni in this part of Europe. I could ask what's your next video about. I can give you all the sneak peek. My next video is going to be how flat earthers have managed to get confused by left and right. Because, yeah, I keep seeing flat earthers, or keep seeing people arguing that they think TFE's footage is fake because the sun's going west to east, and shouldn't it be going east to west? Because left and right seems to be confusing them. So yeah, that'll be... I've finished putting it together, but that'll be Tuesday, I think that'll go live. Huge arse, $5 Right now, Rusty is contributing more to society than the flat earthers combined. Yeah, he's full of energy. I did ask him, you know, to be a bit more engaged, but yeah. Here we are. I've even got a full Rusty full screen there as well. Yeah. I would wake him up, but then he'll try and climb up on me. Clarence AS2, £5. After Liverpool's draw, are you worried there could be extra title race? Oh, you had to bring that up, didn't you? Hey? I don't know. We'll see. Arsenal currently don't have a proper attack, so I'm hoping that they drop some points as well. But, yeah, I don't mind there being a title race as long as we win it. Right, Slackback, $5. Why do Flirfs prefer the P1000? There are so many better choices. Marketing hype is probably the best way to put it. It's probably the same reason that many people prefer smartphones over big consumer cameras, because they believe the marketing hype that tells them that a phone camera is as good as a £2,000 or £3,000 mirrorless camera, which obviously it's not. But I mean, I have actually got, can't remember where I put it, I have got a P1000 here somewhere. I bought it to do a comparison of a P1000 compared to, where are we, that big solar setup that I used in Antarctica. And I was going to do a wrong one, there we go. I was going to do a video showing where P1000s are actually quite impressive for what they cost and what they're marketed to, but there are many other better options if you want kind of if you want to see close-up objects at a distance, there are solutions that will give you better results, but they're more expensive. Bill Tetley, $5. Here's a treat for Rusty. Thank you for all your hard work in the southern polar region. Thank you very much, Bill. I'm sure Rusty will very much appreciate it when it can be bothered to wake up. Nope, nothing. Lord of Luminous Poo. Want a giggle? Look up Benedict Cumberbatch Penguin. I have seen that, Lord of Luminous. It is absolutely hilarious. Penguin? I can't even remember how he managed to mess it up, but yeah, I couldn't believe it. Tony Cardone, $50. A little something for the Globe Earth Dog Treat Fund. Oh, that perked you up, didn't it? He's going to try climbing over to me now. There he is. He had a little nap. Right, where are we? Didn't even finish reading that super chat. Looks like he's working hard to hold that chair down on the spinning ball. That tail goes anymore, you'll be spinning it into orbit. Al26TC101's World of... Is that World of Record? £2. Is there any chance of another final experiment? He's gone. It's entirely possible. I've no idea what it would be, how it would get funded. Who knows? But yeah, there's other options. I mean, who knows? It could be a trip to space next, or the next final experiment could be to prove the moon landings by actually going there. Derek the Dullard, £5. Rusty is so cute. Please let me know if you bring him to Brum. He is absolutely adorable, but he doesn't like, well, anything really. He's so scared of everything. I've seen him jump scared of a shadow before. He's very timid, unfortunately. Mystery Man, $2 Australian. Will you be allowing memberships at some point? Yes. Well, that was a plan. I was going to enable memberships, but the problem I have is I don't really know how to structure them. Usually you have a membership, and a membership gives you offerings of something, but I've no idea what the hell to offer. I probably need to sort out some emojis to have. I thought maybe all memberships for members-only videos or early releases of videos, but sometimes my videos are so all over the place, I can't always release them early. And because this is the first live stream, I don't know if I'm going to be doing regular live streams, so I thought I didn't want to have a load of people sort of buy memberships and then me not do it again. So, yeah, hopefully if I can make this a bit more of a regular thing, then memberships would probably be a thing, but it's something I'd have to work out. Mark W, £2. Rusty made a good point. Can we talk about this? He's gone back asleep now, but he's on the floor. So I set a camera up, aimed at his chair, because that is where he always sleeps. Everyone harks on him, like flat earthers like to hark on in my videos that, oh, you're being cruel because you're making the dog be there. I don't make the dog be there. I come and sit in this chair. He goes straight to that chair. That's his chair. When I film my videos, he lets me use his chair. Where are we? Roshi, €5. Just to be sure, I'm the opposite of a flurf. I have the curvature of Earth while skydiving from 22,000 feet. Well, that's impressive. Skydiving certainly something that I've not done, nor will I likely ever be doing. Where's Wally? €5 Australian. Roger Ledwell is crowdfunding to go in December. Toons point and laugh at Roger now has Flatzoid claiming that we're trying to stop Roger from going and debunking TFE. I'm assuming that is the same Roger Ledwell who is crowdsourced something like $73, of which 5 of it was himself donating to his own cause. yeah, I think, why hasn't Flatzoid donated to it then, or anybody else? You know, I'll happily, if I thought a flat Earther was actually going to go, I'd be actively encouraging people to go and back him. But Gary, I owe £2. I have lenses more expensive than a P1000. Yeah. In fact, well, I think I can't even work out where I'm pointing here. That lens, Tamron 70 to 180mm f2.8, is about the same price as what I paid for the P1000, and that's just the lens with no camera. And that's cheap by lens statutes. You don't realize how expensive lenses can be until you get into photography and you see like the big white lenses that you often see at the sides of sports events. Those things are like $10,000-$11,000 just for a lens, and most of them aren't even zooms. They're just a fixed focal length. They're just, the optics in them are so amazing that, yeah, they make a P1000 look like an Etch-a-Sketch. Derek the Dullard, £2. What does your family make of what you do? It's certainly a strange conversation to have with people. I quite often joke with my dad now, because when I first started doing when I first started doing YouTube videos, I can't even remember how long ago it was now. Excuse me. I've been talking for so long, my throat's starting to hurt. Yeah, when I started doing YouTube videos for photography, I was working as a photographer for a company, but the company was basically going through a rough patch where I was getting paid, but they had no work for me to do. So I had to be at home on hand to do like editing work for them, but there was nothing actually for me to do. So I was just sat around. I couldn't go and do other stuff. I couldn't go do freelance stuff because I needed to be on hand because I was salaried with them. So I thought, I'll just start doing YouTube videos, and it'll be something to pass the time, and I'll be at home. And then soon after that, the company folded. And so my dad said, well, what are you going to do now? What are you going to go? What are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to just pursue this YouTube for a little bit. I'm just going to see how it transpires. And he just sort of snuffed it off. That's you've got to get a proper job. You know, the kind of because he grew up in a time, obviously pre-YouTube, and this idea of earning money from making videos, just YouTube videos, just seemed alien to him. So he wouldn't buy that you could actually do that. Anyway, you know, I was obviously not making a huge amount, not making much off the photography videos, but I was doing a lot of freelance work as well. So it was the two, you know, all of that kind of come together, and building it slowly. And I thought, hopefully it'll build and build and build, and the more that the YouTube side builds up, the more I can sort of rein in the freelance and be more picky with what work I take. And then, yeah, this whole kind of flat Earth side of things blew up, and now I'm to the point that I'm in a very fortunate position that I can get by with just from doing YouTube videos. And I always wind him up, going, do you remember when you used to say that like this wasn't a proper job? And he's like, yeah. But it was quite funny when I'm then telling people I'm going to Antarctica, for example. So like I joined a gym back in June, sort of partly in preparation for going to Antarctica, because I wanted to get my fitness up. And I mentioned to one of the instructors that I was going to Antarctica in December, and they're like, why are you going there? So, I'm going to prove the Earth's not flat. It's just not the kind. You get weird looks when you put it like that, which is obviously why I was going to Antarctica. But one of the people in the gym actually then turned around to me and said, "You're going to Antarctica? What kind of a scientist are you?" Like, I'm not. even though for some reason Flat Earth has constantly managed to get me confused with Professor Dave, the number of people I've had go, "Oh, you're not a Professor Dave." I'm like, I never claimed to be a Professor Dave. That's the other Dave. Yeah. In fact, I think some Flat Earther made an AI video, linked it to me and said, "Oh, you're now the star of this TFE video." And I had a look through it, and they basically made this AI video of Toon's in there, Mark Herman's in there, Jaren, Austin, Will's in there. Professor Dave's in there, and I'm not. So I can only assume they've managed to somehow screw it up and confuse me with Professor Dave. It's great. I'm Dave with the dog. That seems to be... Or unless you're Creaky Blinder, in which case he thinks I'm bloody Dave Vice and called me a shill. Thanks, Creaky. Music obtuism, 50 sec. We all know the Earth is breast-shaped and domed teat. Why else would we call it Mother Nature? Flatzoid didn't go, so he don't get to debate Flat Earth. Yeah, pretty much. I kind of it is one of those where, although Flatzoid didn't get any formal invitation, even though he knew he was invited and it was never on offer to be paid for, and he could have crowdfunded but didn't bother. But he was never formally invited. Yeah, I said from the outset, I think at least the people who were offered a spot to go for free, like Vice, like Dubay, like Oakley, Mark Sargent, all of them had the opportunity to have an all-expenses-paid trip. I know some of them will say that I know Oakley and Sargent, their offers came from that Flat Earther who was moonlighting as a donator, and it was all actually just a con, and they were never going to pay. But when they rejected the offer, they didn't know it was a fake offer. So all of them who rejected what was deemed at the time to be a genuine offer of going for free don't have the right to question or argue any of what we saw, because they could have gone for themselves and seen it with us and refused. Music obtuism for 20 sec. Really, Zoid didn't go. He forfeited his debate position. Yeah. Claire Celestine for $10. Thank you for all the great videos. I usually learn science, and I respect how you keep the tone away from name-calling muck. I appreciate you. Thank you very much, Claire. Always glad to know that people do learn things from my videos. And the great thing is, as well, is why I love doing these videos, is I learn stuff from them. Like, before I got into doing Flat Earth content, I knew very little about surveying. Granted, it's not like I'm claiming to now know enough to be a surveyor, but I know a hell of a lot more about surveying now than I ever did beforehand, because doing these videos actually prompted me to go and research it. Bill Tetley, $5. Please do memberships, then I can have the trifecta of Craig McToon, Mike FTFE, McNeil, and you. Well, that is that. Like I say, Bill, hopefully I'll be able to, but I'm not setting them up now. Jumping around here. Music obtusum, 20 sec. Check out my song Round and Around, Flurf parody. I'll have a look at that if I get a second. Brendan Contreras, $5. If Flurf manage to meet their crowdfunding goal, they will probably come up with an excuse to not do what they propose, and we'll pocket the money. Well, that's kind of where you've got to put your faith in intellectual honesty, and are they going to do that or not? I mean, you know, you could argue technically there was always the risk that Toon could have done that. You know, obviously, I'm not saying that he would have done, but you know, that's always a thing of crowdfunding anybody. It's just that it seems Flat Earthers have a tendency of making themselves less trustworthy. Baltazar228 for $5. I'm always floored that anyone took Eric Dubay seriously from the get-go. He literally wrote a Flurf neo-Nazi vegan rap song. Well, thankfully I've not heard that, because I tend not to try and listen to him drone on. Tommy Gronvol, 20 knock. Will you go back to photography videos, do you think? I don't know, frankly, Tommy. I mean, obviously, at the moment, everything is just still dealing with the fallout from Antarctica and TFE. There's so many other conspiracies. Even if Flat Earth was to stop tomorrow, I've done videos before about the moon landings. There was videos that I was intending on doing about the moon landings that I've just now put on the back burner. And then there's other conspiracies as well. I mean, there's, the jet fuel conspiracy of do planes actually use jet fuel, and all sorts of weird and wonderful ones that have just, there's probably a lot more material in conspiracy theories that will keep me busy for a while yet. The photography aspect, I still do enjoy. That's why I often try and work photography into some of these videos, where possible. When there's an opportunity to throw in some extra material about photography and teach a bit of it, then I do. Yeah, maybe, I don't know. I always found like there seems to be a load of people in the videos now who comment and go they love learning about the photography stuff, and yet it's strange that when I do still occasionally look at photography channels and the channels that I used to watch, and I see what they're doing. Are they still doing photography? Are they doing other stuff? They're still doing photography, but there's just nowhere near the viewership or interest in it now, versus even there's less now than there was when I stopped doing videos on photography. So I don't know. We'll see. Music obtusum for 50 sec. These super chats do equate to £2 to £5, by the way. If you're afraid of reading up illegitimate super chats or whatever, Google won't let me use GDP. Not a problem. I appreciate all of the support. Baltazar 228, $10. It also floors me that flirts refuse free trips to find out cool stuff. If someone offered me a free trip to China to find out I don't make pork dumplings correctly, I'd be ecstatic to go. Well, yeah, a free trip to anywhere, I suppose, is hard to turn down. And I know when I got offered the TFE trip, obviously every sane part of me wanted to go. There was an element of I'm going to be away from home for 11 days, leaving the family behind. The missus works as well, so obviously there was a big commitment from me from that aspect. So I didn't just want to say, yeah, I'll go, because I needed to speak to her and make sure that I wasn't going to be, just dropping everything on her and pissing off to the other side of the world. And also I was actually supposed to be going to my cousin's wedding, which took place while I was in Antarctica. I had agreed with him he'd asked would I take the photos at his wedding so that he didn't have to pay for a book a professional, or say book another photographer if I was going anyway. And I was like, yeah, sure. And then like a week or two later, obviously the offer of this comes about, and I kind of had to go up to him and say, do you mind if I don't go to your wedding? I did sort of make it quite clear. I was like, look, if I know I've agreed to do the wedding for you, but I've been offered this opportunity. If it's going to be an issue, I don't want to be causing ruptures or whatever, I'll turn it down. And he just went, don't be stupid, take the trip. It's an insane trip to not take down, to turn down. So yeah, he was fully on board with it. But yeah, it's a big trip. It's a big commitment to go on when you've got family and the likes, and especially with it being quite close to Christmas as well. Stephen Canavan, €2, no message. Thank you, Stephen. Huge R's, 5 Australian. I love Antarctica, but I couldn't eat a whole one. Or could I? Oh, I think you could, Hugh. Never doubt you. Music obtusum. Okay, it's music obtusium. like an obtuse element or metal. Right. Thank you very much. Maybe I'll just refer to you as music. It's safer. Baltazar 228 $10. Can we have a Nobel Prize in proving yourself wrong by experiment? Thanks, Bob. Yes, Bob will forever be remembered for that. In fact, you know, I did actually have a hoodie design made of the Thanks Bob. Obviously, before he passed away. It is in that drawer there. Never seen the light of day. I'll tell you the backstory of it. This was obviously in the time just before he passed away. Everything was always thanks Bob, thanks Bob. There was always the relation. There was always the talking about the 15-degree-per-hour drift. And I thought it'd be so funny to just make it into a T-shirt or some sort of design. So I made the design of the gyroscope, like a clip art version of the gyroscope like they had on the documentary, and then a little like the gyroscope display that they had on the Netflix documentary where it counted up to the 15 degrees per hour. I made a box like that with thanks Bob in like digital clock text type, and I was gonna advertise it on my merch store. But before I did, I thought I'll order it. I'll get a sample sent to me so I can check it. And I requested the sample, and then before the sample turned up, I heard that he'd passed away. So I thought, yeah, that'll be inappropriate. So I literally, it arrived. I put it in that drawer, and I've not brought it up, and I won't, just because it's so, yeah, a bit inappropriate there. Music again for 100 secs. Please don't hurt me, chat mods. I just want to share it because funny. It was not a serious project. This is for you, Dave. The YouTube watch code. Feel free to use it if you feel. Thank you very much, music. I'll not play it right now, but I will have a look through it probably tomorrow. I'm not going to have time tonight, but Tommy Gronvold for 50 knock. Same for me. As a hobby photographer, I've made many of my videos about observations and cameras. One of the dumber topics was the culmination on a DSLR. Yeah, there was. Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I said, the photography videos were great, but plus the market went quiet as well. And it was strange. It was the market kept busy during COVID, and then post COVID, like a year or two later, suddenly all the manufacturers just went really quiet, and it was like nobody was releasing anything. It was so strange. Right. So we're up to date on the super chats, and we've been through, I think, the Punta Arenas stuff. So I'll bring up some of the Antarctica stuff. So doing that. So where am I at here? Where's my screen share gone? Here we go. So I'm trying to think what that one is. Oh right, so these are, yeah, these were pictures on the flight. Ignore these, a chronological order problem. These were on the flight after we'd finished, but they were taken on my other camera, so they were out of sequence. Yeah, so we arrived at Punta Arenas Airport. This is obviously getting onto the 757 to head to Antarctica. And then, yeah, the views out of the window. It was mad that you take off, you're pretty quickly out over the ocean, and then we're just watching the map going, we've got to be closing in on the peninsula soon, got to be closing in on the peninsula. And then you start to see these icebergs down below that they look like tiny little ice cubes floating in the sea, but you know full well that they could sink a ship. These things would be huge. And then, yeah, once you get out into over the ice shelf, and then it's just like this. And that horizon doesn't look particularly straight. Yeah, just the views were absolutely stunning. And like so, you're looking down on these and you think they look like tiny little lumps of ice, and you know full well they're not. That you're 40,000 feet in the air by this point, and these entire massive lumps of ice. I think even like this one, I think that is probably like a raised up slope bit rather than a change in texture. I think that's actually just like the edge of a like a cliff face. Yeah, it's insane. It was funny because the night before we flew out, the ALE staff took us out to a restaurant and paid for us to have dinner like all together with them, and Carty was Carty and Carlos were the two ALE staff, and Carty was great. She was dead knowledgeable about everything. Carlos, I think, was quite new to ALE, but Carty had been there a while, and obviously was like, feel free to ask questions. So Jaren and Austin are straight on to, can we go and freely explore Antarctica? So they're going down this rabbit hole of why can't you go and freely explore? And Carty's trying to explain, you can. There's nothing stopping you, but you've got to abide by Antarctic treaty rules, which say, you can't leave a load of crap behind. You can't go and do stuff that's going to destroy the environment. So you need to be able to show what you're going to do to authority, to whatever local government authority from wherever you're going to be setting off from. You need to get permission from them by showing them what you're going to do, where you're going to do it, what kind of, what impact are you going to be having on the environment. And she was explaining how that's kind of the point of clues very much in the name, Antarctic Logistics and Expeditions. They are literally there to facilitate the logistics needed to do expeditions in Antarctica. And if you want to go and explore Antarctica, you can do, and they will help you do it. But one of the things that they're going to do is, if you're planning on going to an area that they are not familiar with or they don't regularly go to, they will go ahead of you and survey that area to make sure that there is a safe passage for you to go through, that you're not going to fall into a ravine somewhere. So she was explaining how, that's why it's so expensive for these trips, that you can't just literally just rock up and go wandering. And Austin and Jaren seem to be somewhat understanding it, but still to some extent like, yeah, but why can't you just, why can't we just take a sleigh full of food and just, walk across Antarctica? And then we're flying over, and this is the view that we're met with, this, vast hundreds of miles of literally nothing but ice. And I went up to Jaren on the plane and said, so Jaren, do you still want to go and freely and independently explore this place? And he just went, not if you paid me $1 million. Like I said, it's so picturesque, beautiful, and yet at the same time, you would not want to be down there alone by yourself. Excuse me. So just, this was then as we were sort of descending in towards the airstrip, and then I was sitting on the right-hand side of the plane, and as we were coming in, this was Union Glacier camp was on the left side of the plane, so I could see the camp, but I was on the opposite side, so I had to kind of just snag a picture through from across the aisle. But yeah, that's the camp. So those are the tents that we were in. That's the meteorological office and the comm center were there. That's the food tent that they were in. That was the library tent, I believe. And then these were all the staff tents. Yeah, there's the Twin Otters sitting on the runway there, which they use for the scenic flights. And then the road that we drove when we were going to Halfway Point somewhere like out of frame here behind these seats. But we would drive along this road down to here, At which point there was like a hairpin turn, and then we drove along this stretch here, and then yeah, halfway points down there somewhere. Where are we at here? Yeah, so this was, yeah, on the final descent. You can see the wheels were already down by this point, and then there we are on the runway. Yeah, just landing on the runway was even crazy, because normally if you experience a landing on a typical airport, when you touch down, the spoilers flip up on the top of the wings, the reversers come on the engines, and you can feel yourself sort of being lunged forward as the brakes are being thrown on, and everything's coming on really hard to just take as much speed off as quickly as possible. And then they back everything off. So you kind of like get lunged in your seat, and then it gets eased off, and the reversers go off, and you kind of roll in down the runway. Landing on the ice runway, completely different. There was no sudden lunge forward because they didn't put the wheel brakes on because you're landing on ice. So they had the reversers on the whole way down the runway until pretty much we come to a complete stop. So the deceleration was much less than you would normally expect on a plane. And Scott said that runway we landed on, it was 3 kilometers in length. I think a normal airport runway is about 2.5. And we needed pretty much the entire runway to stop. It was crazy. And then this was us. So that's Will and then myself. We've got some pictures at the with the Union Glacier sign. There was Toons sat on his arse doing nothing. Rest assured, though, he did actually do a lot more than that for the trip. And then this was, so this is from the Tucker, the orange truck, driving from the camp, which I think that's the Chilean. That's the Chilean base. In fact, there's the Chilean Air Force has got a base over there somewhere. I think Union Glacier's possibly that bit. But we were on the road out, heading up to halfway point. This was I put the camera against the window at the back of the Tucker, looking back towards Mount Rossman. But that kind of gives you some idea. You think Mount Rossman's there. The camp's not here next to the base of Mount Rossman. The camp's somewhere off here. Your perception of distance goes completely out the window. I think they said Mount Rossman was something like 2 kilometers away from the camp, but it looks like you could just walk up to it. And then this was Jonathan, although you'd struggle to recognize him if it wasn't for all the cameras. So just for context, the cameras that he's using here are all DSLRs. So when you're filming video, you can't use the viewfinder. You can only view the back screen. My camera, I could get away with. I could look through the viewfinder and see video being recorded. But on a DSLR, you can't. You have to use the back screen. But in bright sunlight, and especially surrounded by snow and ice, you can't see screens. Literally can't see anything. So he spent most of the time outside with this big blanket over his head and wrapped around the camera, just so that he could see his own screen to see what he was actually capturing. Then this is, so this was just me being a bit artsy. This is inside the hut at halfway point. That's Jaren, Lisbeth, and Austin are setting up Jaren's tracker mount, but I was just framed it artistically within the door. And then this was, so Jonathan wanted some little sort of one-to-one interview type talk with Will, and he just sat himself down on the ice, which I thought was just quite hilarious. He's just in this really remote location and you just plonk your ass on the ice. It was it was quite funny. Speaking of ice, actually, I wanted to mention this. So this is, I know it looks just like water. You will see, if you watch any of my videos now, you will see this normally situated just over there on the back wall. And that is actually or was, Antarctic ice. So this is the water bottle that I had in Antarctica. That obviously we had to take a bottle for drinking and a bottle for dealing with the consequences of drinking water. So yeah, this was my water bottle that I'd been using for drinking out of. And then on the last day when we were packing up to go, I thought, I want to take something as a memento. What can I take as a memento? And I thought, well, there's nothing really much to take unless I'm nicking part of the camp equipment. I'll take some ice. So I literally dumped a load of ice in my water bottle, and then I put it in. This is the little pouch that the advised we had. So it's like a reflective. It's meant to be like an insulated pouch to stop it from freezing up. So I thought it was more just to hoping that it doesn't leak. And yeah, so I brought back Antarctica ice that is now normally living on the shelf behind me. But what was actually quite amazing was the fact that I filled this up with ice while we were at the main camp. And I shoved it in that, and then I shoved it in the suitcase. We had the suitcases then checked in, with the staff then put on these trailers to take down to the runway. Several hours went by. Fly back to Chile. Offload in Chile. Drive all the way back to the hotel. Get to the hotel room. Take this out the case just to make sure it's not leaked. Open it up. There was still ice in the bottle. I just genuinely couldn't believe it that there was ice. It was still ice. I mean, granted, it didn't stay ice for much longer after that because it was in a hotel room. But yeah, I just thought it was really impressive. That's just how well those insulation pouches work. That it actually managed to keep ice as ice. I mean, I don't know how cold or warm the cargo hold of the plane would be, but yeah. All right, where are we at here? Let's get a couple more super chats in. Gary IO for £20. Was a pro photographer from 1988 till 2015. Made a good living from it. Also software developer. Designed and built hardware for the MOD and US DOD. And wrote software that made it all work. Websites, databases, apps. I did it all. Sounds like you've had a very full time, a very full life there, Gary. Yeah, it's probably, I can imagine it's kept you busy. Brandon Contreras for $2. Who was the one who asked the staff when the sun would set? I think that was Jonathan. I think he did it partly as joking. I think he kind of figured by that point that the sun wasn't going to set. Yeah, I think he did it more as just a joke, sort of for a giggle, get a bit of a giggle out of the staff. But the staff just didn't see the funny side of it because they didn't I don't think they fully understood what we were there for, why we were there. They thought it was just a genuine question of what time does the sun set, and obviously it doesn't. But yeah, I think they'd all kind of knew by that point. I think, I say collectively, that the flat Earth side, kind of knew to expect a 24-hour sun as soon as we got to Antarctica. One, because I don't think, ALE wouldn't, we wouldn't have got that far into the journey, I think, if the sun was actually going to set without it becoming apparent that the sun was going to set at some point, whereas we'd instead been in Chile for 2 or 3 days, watched the sun set southwest and rise southeast, and you could literally see the glow of twilight move across the horizon dead south of us. I think Jonathan, in fact, did a shot of that. He had not an Insta360, he had something called an Osmo Pocket, which has got like a little pivoting head. It looks kind of similar size to that, but it's got a little separate head mount that turns. And he set that up in our hotel room. And he got from sunset, and I think he had it tracking along the horizon to sunrise, literally just sort of going with the light of twilight across the horizon. So it's kind of obvious the sun was south of us in Punta Arenas, so kind of laid the groundwork of, well, the sun's there further south of us. It's not setting in Antarctica. So, yeah, he definitely wasn't being serious, but the staff kind of didn't get the joke. LDA for $5. How do you see future experiments impacting the flat Earth community, like another TFE and eventually visits to orbit? When will FE die out? Well, I think once we reach, definitely by the time we reach a point where commercial flights to orbit are a regular thing, then it will die out. I don't think that's going to be for a while yet, because probably kind of like, I think flights to orbit will be like commercial flights are now. That when they first started, it was only the very well off that could afford it. It was a luxury thing to go on a plane. Whereas nowadays, most people experience flying. So I think flights to orbit will go in that same sort of route, that it will start off very limited supply, very few people will get the opportunity, but in years to come, it will become far more regular. And even if flat earthers directly don't do it, there will reach a point where it is becoming so it's going to be such a regular occurrence, and even if they don't directly do it, they will inevitably wind up knowing people who have been to space and gone, I've been to space, I've seen out the window the Earth's a globe. And I think it's going to be much harder for them to turn around to people that they know, say, you're lying, rather than strangers on the internet. So there will reach a point where flat Earth's going to die out. Whether that will be anytime soon or sooner than regular trips to orbit, though, I don't know. I think maybe to some extent that I lost my train of thought now. Yeah, I think to some extent there's some people in the flat Earth community that maybe do this not so much because they genuinely think the Earth is flat, or they care that much that the Earth is flat, but to some of them I think it's their identity, and that they like that audience and having that attention. And I think even if they don't directly get convinced that the Earth is a globe, or prepared to accept that the Earth is a globe, there may be some that if their audience dwindles too much, they just won't see the point in carrying on doing it anymore. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a tricky one. I think there'll always be some people that stick with it for whatever reason, but I think this will help a lot of people see that actually the Earth's a globe, and help them come out of that and stop new people from falling into that rabbit hole. I'm probably going to have to wrap this up, guys, soon. I think my throat's starting to really hurt. Chris, good luck for $5 Australian. Careful, Dave. A bottle full of Antarctic ice may contain some ancient lethal virus. Great video, excellent photos, and informative as always. Yes, that's right. The lid has stayed sealed. I might even, glue it shut and disinfect it just to be safe. Paul Askins for €10. Funny how Flurf's just expected to be able to wander across Antarctica. It's twice the size of Australia, scale not being a strong suit of the Flurf community. Yeah, it does wreck your head, to be fair, to some extent. I know it threw me, like, just how open the expanse was, even though I'd already seen beforehand that you can fit pretty much the whole of the mainland US in Antarctica with room to spare, and it still sort of amazed me as well. So yeah, I think there's elements of just not considering the logistics of it all as well. Like, for example, Jaren said, couldn't they just hire a plane to fly from Chile to Australia? And he said, it's whatever figure he put, like £1 million, say, to hire a plane to do the flight. He He said, but the plane can hold like a few hundred people. So, you know, if you sell tickets for a few thousand apiece, it would pay for the flight. Until I had to point out to him, I said, it's not just a question of can you hire a plane. I said, what happens if something goes wrong to the plane whilst you're flying over Antarctica? And he's like, oh yeah, well, you've got to land. I was like, not only have you got to land, it's like, you can't just drop it down in the middle of nowhere, because if you're coming down on anything like snow, there's a good possibility that it's going to completely wreck the plane. So that's why they have the ice runway specifically for landing on, or why planes that don't land on the ice runway land with skis. I said, but even if you then touch down, even if you manage to get the plane landed safely, you then have a plane stranded in Antarctica with several hundred people on board that you then have to get out. It's like, you can't just fly another plane in, like another 787 or whatever, to land next to the stricken one to load the people on, because it can't land there safely and get back off again. So you'd have to have something to be able to, you'd have to have some mechanism to be able to get several hundred people across Antarctica to a place of safety where they can be flown back out to civilization. Once you've then done that, you've got a plane that's stricken in Antarctica. You can't just leave it there. You've got to somehow get the plane off there, which is, you know, how the hell are you going to move several hundred tons of plane over ice and snow? There's far more to the logistics than just hiring a plane. And that's kind of where the problem of the Antarctic Treaty comes in, is the fact that you can't just go, I'm going to fly a plane over the pole. You need to have something in place of what happens if things go wrong. Odds are they won't, but if they do, you need to have steps in place. And obviously, recovering a plane from the most inhospitable place on the planet is not exactly easy. Right, I'm going to jump ahead on these photos, guys, because like I said, I'm going to have to wrap this up soon, because, yeah, my throat is starting to hurt a bit. So I like this photo. This photo for me, when I took it, I said afterwards, I went and showed it to Will, I said, this for me is just the epitome of TFE. So this is, well, you'll actually be able to see here, well, you would if it would zoom in. So this is, oh, there we go. This is during the midnight live stream. So this is, yeah, this is us during the midnight live stream that we did when the first, only bloody one that we did there, but yeah. So yeah, this is all of us together. So this is flat earthers and globers together, literally under the midnight sun in Antarctica. And that for me was just, like I said, that was just sort of summed up TFE in its entirety. That was the whole point. That was what Will envisaged, was bringing both sides of the argument together, getting us to Antarctica and seeing the midnight sun. And yeah, there it is. What have we got here? This is Toon. So this was after the midnight stream. He then went streaming for a couple of hours. So I was in and out of the stream with him on this one. But yeah, I just got some photos of him while he was streaming. I like this one again, just gives you the sense of how insanely big this place is. So this is Mount Rossman. This was taken with I think this was 180 millimeter. Oh, 75 millimeter. So it's fairly close in view. It's more telephoto than what your eye perceives. And that is somebody walking along the path. So if you see the camp and the area from an above view, you'll see they've got the normal sort of route that you can walk around that goes from the camp out and around. And then where we were at halfway point is on a sort of dogleg section. So this person is walking along the regular path, if you like, and we're situated further back. And it's just, yeah, that just shows the sort of scale of the place. And then the main camp is further away, down along the screen, and actually hidden, obscured. Sort of the ice here drops down, so you can't see the camp itself. And then this one was this was during Will's drone flight green screen stream. So I think I showed this one in one of my recent videos. Actually, the whole sequence of it. So this was when he did the stream and he flew his drone away from the camera and then back towards the computer. After he'd done that, I don't know why, I just thought, something tells me flat earthers are going to try and claim that that drone didn't go far enough away from the camera. So I went walking off way down the path. But I made sure the whole time when I'm looking back, I thought, as long as I can see Will's laptop there, I know if I can see the screen, the camera can see me. And you can, if you watch his green screen footage, you can see me like walk off into the distance, stop, turn around, take a couple of pictures, wander off a little bit further, take some more pictures. I ended up way down the path. And at one point, I was really tempted to just see, I wonder how far I can just disappear off into the distance, but I thought probably better not do that. Where am I at here? We'll pull up this one. This was after we'd finished at halfway point. Scott took us on a drive out to the runway, and then further off into the glacier, and all of this is ice. It's insane. So you can see here, like Jonathan's got, Toon's got these things strapped around your feet, so they're just literally like spikes, because all of this is ice. If you stand on this without those spikes, you will be on your arse and sliding down that hill. It was so slippery without it. And we were walking up through these ice hills. They looked like dunes of ice. But it was so cold and windy, so I'm literally like, hunkered up. Like, for anyone who says it doesn't look that cold, it might not be that cold at the camp when there's no wind. But out there, once you're out in the open, it was bloody freezing, and that was even in direct sunlight. It was still freezing. And then Jonathan asked me to get a picture of him because apparently he does surfing, and he said that looks like a kind of a wave that you would surf along, so we wanted a picture of that. This was the camp. So our tent, I think our tent is one behind this. Ours was quite easy to recognize because Jonathan decided to plant a little American flag outside the front door. And then these two, so this and this one, this is the talk that Will gave. So on the last night, the last night I think it was, they give us like a little champagne reception thing. I can't even see it. There's a certificate over there. Everyone got given a certificate from the ALE staff. Basically just, kind of acknowledging that we were actually there and that we survived Antarctica and made it home again. They put on this little reception thing. And but then one of the staff said to Will, some of the staff have been hearing about this whole flat earth thing that you've been doing, and they've been quizzing and wanting to know more about it. Would you mind, sitting down with them and answering some questions? I kind of figured they were just talking about 2 or 3 people or were just interested. Anyway, Will was like, yeah, okay, well, do you want to, we'll set it up in this tent, you can get whoever down. Okay. The place was filled. Like, I was near the back of the tent when I took these pictures. It was standing room only. You've got, I think that's Austin there. And I think Jaren's, that's Jaren there. And then everyone else in view is staff from the camp. who were all just like really intrigued because it just, to them, it was so alien, this notion of people who think the Earth is flat and people who thought there might not be a 24-hour sun, because obviously they live and breathe this every single day for months at a time. So yeah, it was just crazy how many people came to see this talk. That I ended up leaving in the end because Austin was just. I was listening to so much of Austin. He just frustrated me because he started bringing up all these points of apparent proofs of how the Earth can't be a globe. Except all the points that he was bringing up was topics that he and I had discussed in length over the past day or two, and I'd explained perfectly clearly to him how they could work on a globe, and he just, straight reset back to they don't work on a globe. And yeah, he just went back to the script mantra, and I thought, I'm just going to get up and leave before I wind up saying something that I shouldn't. And then this was on the last night. They pulled us out early on the set. They pulled us out on the 17th rather than let us stay to the 18th because the weather was turning bad. And on the 16th, during the evening, it did actually kind of get quite bad. Relatively speaking, the clouds had rolled in, so you can kind of see from Will's 36-hour time lapse, the clouds roll in, so the sun gets obscured quite a lot. When it's obscured, obviously you're not getting heated by the sun, so you suddenly feel the cold a lot quicker, and the wind picked up quite a bit as well, which is why you then saw people like flying kites and parasailing around the camp and stuff. But this was the mountains way off in the west. You could actually see this is like clouds of snow and ice, like kicking off the top of the mountains into the ice shelves. I'm not even screen sharing that, am I? So sorry, everybody. I've just completely forgot I had the wrong screen on. So yeah, that's the tent with Will and the ALE staff. So that's what we're saying. That's Austin and Jaren sat down there, and then the rest are camp members. And then that's the mountain peak there. I'm assuming then I've also managed to screw up. There we are. So there's the ice hills and the spikes that I was talking about there. And then that's me dressed up for quite cold temperatures. There's Jonathan and his surfing. And then, yeah, that's the mountaintops. And then Jaren thought it'd be a great idea to go riding a bike. So they had bikes in the camp that they said we could ride around on. They were just sort of a help yourself jobs. So yeah, Jaren and Toon were riding them, and myself, I was actually on the bike as well while I was taking the pictures. So trying to remember how to ride a bike one-handed whilst taking photographs, that was quite a fun little challenge to do. And then yeah, that one, is it that one? Yeah, so that was actually one of that's linked to a moon landing video that I'm gonna do. Because I wound up, the weather had got that cold. I don't know, the picture is somewhere. I wanted to show you. There it is. The weather had turned that cold that I wound up with like the big thick gloves on. I had ski goggles and balaclava on to try and cover myself up as much as possible. So that is me sort of early hours of the morning, just completely head to toe trying to cover up all my skin. And then I'm kind of thinking that I imagine is how it would be like to be in a spacesuit, because I've got these big thick goggles on. They don't sit kind of flush to your eyes. They're sat out quite a way, so you can't see right below you at all. And I've got these big gloves on. So I thought that'll be a great test for these people who say that it's like impossible to get really good photos with a chest-mounted camera. So I had Toon film me as I'm walking around camp, holding my camera to my chest, literally just blind taking pictures. And yeah, that I thought I went round and found a few different things to take pictures of, and I said, I'm going to go take a picture of this tent. And literally, that is the photo that I shot of a tent with a camera just held against my chest. So I couldn't actually see what I was aiming at. I was just having to gauge it roughly with where I felt that the camera was pointing based on where my chest was pointing. And lo and behold, that's actually a pretty damn good composed shot, I think. Especially considering, like, that's what I then did later on, actually trying to compose the shot, being able to see the screen. It's not that dissimilar. That, however, is our tent, because that's the one with the little American flag that Jonathan decided to, declare that he was, to plant the American flag in Antarctica, which was dangerous considering we were in Chilean territory, and that's the Norwegian explorer whose name I always butcher. So yeah, it felt like Jonathan was trying to start World War III at some times. I think that's pretty much it. And then, a couple last little ones I think I'll share, and then I'm going to wrap this up because, yeah, it's now getting quite late, and I am rather tired. And like I said, my throat is killing me. Where am I at here? So, yeah, this is... For anyone who knows Elf on the Shelf, because we were so close to Christmas, and our girls love Elf on the Shelf, so I made sure that the elves could come and visit me while I was in Antarctica, so they didn't feel left out. So the elves came to visit me, so I sent a picture of me and the elves back home for the girls to see, and they were very happy with it. In fact, the elves even came on the scenic flight with me as well. I got a couple of photos of them looking out of the window. And then this was at some point at halfway point. I don't even know what time it was. But yeah, I was just sat there trying to do some editing on my computer, and I'm just listening to the sound of snoring, because that was pretty much everything that was going on. Was just everyone around me just seemed to be snoring and asleep, and there's me fighting to stay awake because I know I've got to keep an eye on that equatorial mount. So it's just, I thought, I'm gonna nab a photo of this. And then talking of everyone sleeping, one last one. Yes, there's Mr. Toon trying to chew his glasses. Bless him. This was in Santiago Airport. He'd done his little, wrote his little program code for my photos to center all of the shots of the sun. Even though Flatsoid seems to think that that's some magic program that manages to fake everything. But yeah, he was waiting for all the photos to render, and then the next thing he's just asleep and chewing his glasses. So, I'm going to finish up the last couple of super chats here, and then I think I'm going to wrap this one up, guys, because, it's quite late, and how long have I been going now? 2 and a bit hours. That's probably about as much as I did in Antarctica as well. Basement Blockhead, £5. I've watched hours of your videos for free. Seems unfair. So, but then we don't tip delivery drivers anymore. Well, it's... what was I going to say? Well, I mean, if you don't pay for them, it's fine. I still, I get money off the ad revenue, so it's not like I'm doing it completely for free. But I don't mind. As long as you're learning something from it, that's all that counts. Or at least if you're getting entertained from it, that's all that counts. And Brandon Contreras for $5. A New Zealand flight crashed in Antarctica and some 250 souls were lost. That caused the flight restrictions over the Antarctic regions to be placed. I do recall reading about that, in fact. It was it was quite a regular flight, actually, that used to take place. They used to do scenic flights from New Zealand out to the coast of Antarctica and back round. And I can't remember, was it bad weather or something like that? And they wound up either off course, not where they thought they were, or and wound up hitting the side of a mountain. And yeah, it was awful circumstances. And then after that, they kind of, stopped doing regular flights there. So, right. Oh, God. Rusty. Let me just show you where he is. Oh, here you are. Come on. Yes. Go. I need to get him back in view so that everyone can see him before I go. Hey. You have fans. You can't neglect them. Mark W, £2. Selling any TFE photos? Please say yes. Well, I hadn't really put much thought to selling them, but I don't know. I mean, it's a possibility. In fact, speaking of photos, I'll just bring up one last one as well. So this one, I'll not do that again. This one, for those who just wanted to see, is that photo that I now have behind me there. So that is actually a panorama shot of about, 8 or 9 photos. I walked off away from the hut to be able to get a good wide view of everything from the mountains further beyond the camp off to the north and right the way around to Mount Rossman. And yeah, just took a sequence of pictures around, stuck them all together. And I thought that's now on the wall behind me. Basically, behind me now is just a little homage to the whole Antarctica trip. So it's got you, yes, it's got you in there. So it's got the certificate from the staff in Antarctica. It's got obviously the big panoramic picture from Antarctica. It's got, your head's in the way, Rust. Somewhere behind that light up globe, there is like a 3D printed plaque that Max Dandry, I think it was, printed one for everybody. That's the geronometer that Wes Wally had made to go with Critical Think, and then obviously my bottle of Antarctic ice there as well. So all of those are just now forever on the wall right behind me in every video, and then I have my where is it? It's all flipped inside out. My Antarctica t-shirt as well. Basically all these tiny little things just to constantly remind flat earthers that I did actually go to Antarctica, and yes, the sun did actually circle around us for 24 hours and didn't set, no matter how much they like to claim that it didn't, even though they can't work out how it hasn't. Gary Hio, £5. Mod me day, for fuck's sake, at least I pay attention to the chat. I will, Gary, once I see I need a not a super chat post from you. For some reason it won't let me select you as a mod for a super chat. In fact, Max, you can have a spanner as well. Put a regular comment up here, Gary, now, and I'll make... There we go. There you go, Gary. You are now a mod. And that is it, guys. We are fully caught up on all of the super chats. We're now 2.5 hours into the stream. My throat is destroyed. Just like being in Antarctica, I am very much deprived of sleep because I was up at 5:30 this morning to go to the gym. So, yeah, I'm quite tired and in need of some sleep. Not quite as bad as Antarctica, but yeah. So this has been great. Anyway, I'm hoping it's been a success for the most part, apart from the slight balls up before where I forgot to change it to screen share. But, you know, not bad, I think, for a first stream. So hopefully the report from the rest of the household tomorrow will be that the noise wasn't too bad and that I can make this a bit more of a regular thing. No idea what I'm going to stream about. But, yeah, that is the plan at least, to make it a bit more of a consistent thing occasionally, at least occasionally do some streams. Hopefully organise being able to offer memberships and the likes. And, you know, I don't know, anything else that you guys can suggest, let me know. I think some of you have got me see me on Discord, hit me up on an email or drop me comments. I do try and keep up with the comments on videos. It's just really hard these days. There are so many comments constantly coming through that I struggle to see them all. So I do try and keep up with them as best as I can. But yeah, unfortunately, there's too much for little old me to keep a track of myself. Right, guys. So I think that's going to be it. Rusty's doing what I want to be going to do. Some sidekick he is. So I will bid you all a good night. Thank you very much to everyone who's joined. Oh, one like Mark W, £2. Walkies, want to treat Walkies. Good boy, Walkies. He doesn't respond to those, unfortunately. He just, if I click my fingers, he'll respond, but I dare not do that. Or if I ring the doorbell, that'll send him completely batshit. But in fact, oh no, oh there you are. Thought I'd broke him then. Is it bedtime? Yeah. All right. So yes, thank you very much, everybody, for stopping by. Thank you so much for the support. It's been absolutely amazing. Rusty and I are going to sign off now, and hopefully we'll see you in the next stream.